And away we go. It's just me at the moment. Not sure if Eric or Risk are going to join. Either way, the show must go on. Let's see what's in the news today for me to rant about. Pope Leo faces MAGA eerie after immigration and climate change remark. On October 1st, 2025, Pope Leo XIV blessed a block of melting glacier ice at Castel Gandolfo during the opening session of Raising Hope for Climate Justice, placing his hand on the chunk as water dripped. The conference marked the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si, which launched a global movement, and Pope Leo XIV said its challenges remain even more relevant today at Castel Gandolfo. Some 500 delegates attended the Raising Hope for Climate Justice conference, with speakers including Arnold Schwarzenegger, actor and former California governor, and Marina Silva, Brazil's Minister of Environment and Climate Change. The reaction from conservative Catholics was immediate, with Matt Walsh calling the event horrific and a weird pagan earth worshipping hippie ritual, while critics said the Vatican prioritizes climate activism over spiritual leadership. Pope Leo XIV publics and NGOs to pressure governments for tougher regulations, while Vatican City advances a solar farm plan north of Rome to become carbon neutral before upcoming UN climate summits. So, whatever opinions people have about climate change and the conference for climate activism, climate justice, either way, it's expected. There's always going to be opinions like that about climate change. Although there is arguments that can be made from both sides. One thing's for sure, though, there's a handful of people who do talk about climate change. The reason people raise awareness of climate change is not for the environment. It's not to protect wildlife that we have today. It's simply a tactic for doom and gloom. It's to scare people into changing their way of life that isn't natural for them. You can still live your life the way you want to live your life and still care about the environment and protect existing wildlife or expand potential future wildlife in places that are inhabitable. However, to say you need to change your way of life drastically, I don't think so. I'm not for that. I'm more for the environment, protecting the environment and wildlife. However, changing your diet, not eating red meat, do not use a car on the weekdays. I feel it feels like to me it's in some aspects a way to limit our individual freedoms. They won't say it to you directly. From what I've heard from people about not eating meat, I think some even said, and they've admitted that for sure, that we will eat the bugs. People will be eating bugs as part of their dietary day to day instead of eating meat, which a lot of people had been eating for many years, like even before agricultural methods were invented or revolutionized or innovated. Hunter-gatherer societies relied on hunting down animals and eating the meat from those animals as a way to get the nutrients. Of course, people don't have to eat meat. I'm just saying, who's to say that you shouldn't eat particular groups of food, saying it's bad for you, yet people have eaten that kind of food for many years, even before other types of food even existed. I'm just saying, that's just my take on this climate change. And even if there are people that are committed to combating whatever elements of climate change that people do say is a threat and a concern that should be brought up, there are aspects such as the rise and fall of temperature. We can't control. There's no way of impacting or influencing how high and how high and low temperatures go up and down. The average global temperature, year by year, is inevitable. No matter how hard we try to change our way of life, how little meat we eat, how little we use our cars to get about the countryside, into town, or other neighboring communities. I am not denying climate change. I'm just saying there are bigger problems in our lives right now than aspects in our environments that we cannot control. And even if things do turn out for the worst, it's important now, not later, now, we prepare for such circumstances. And I know there's research that's on the foot end that will tackle that for sure. So, in my opinion, I have nothing to worry about on that regard. There is research that will tackle whatever problems that will come our way, even if people are not willing to tackle the issues at hand already. Bonehead out of Oasis tour after cancer diagnosis. Paul Bonehead Arthurs, Oasis guitarist, announced on October 3rd, 2025 he is taking a planned break from the reunion tour due to health reasons. He revealed an earlier diagnosis of prostate cancer this year and had previously been treated for tonsil cancer in 2022. With the all clear confirmed last September, Arthurs will miss the forthcoming concerts across key cities in Asia and Australia as he continues his medical treatment, but took part in the initial portion of the tour and plans to rejoin the band for the South American leg beginning November 15th. He mentioned that his treatment is going well. He feels positive overall, and though he's disappointed to miss some performances, he expects to return to performing live with the band during their South American tour soon. Oasis expressed support, wishing him well and confirmed his return, while the band recently completed the UK leg with 2 Wembley shows and plans to perform in Asia, Australia, and South America. I hope Bonehead gets. I hope Bonehead does get through whatever diagnosis he had just gotten. And you know what? I'm gonna be blunt with this. Cancer is a bitch. Screw cancer. No one should go. No one should go through that ever. It's unfortunate for anyone to even be diagnosed with cancer anywhere around their body. But if there's anything to learn or know about in recent times regarding cancer research, there are treatments. If not now, but later in the future, there will be advanced cancer treatments to tackle the cancer anywhere and around people's bodies to prevent its spread, even if it starts to spread. However, I feel sorry for the lad. It's never good to get diagnosed with cancer. I hope I hope he gets through this. I hope to some extent he is mostly cured from whatever he's diagnosed with, and hopefully eventually he's back in good health to perform again. Violent protests end as peace agreement reached in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. A civil rights alliance called off protests in Pakistan-administered Kashmir after reaching a deal with authorities. The deal involved the regional government accepting the alliance's demands, including cheaper wheat and reduced electricity tariffs. Violent protests triggered clashes with security forces, leaving at least 10 people dead before the breakout. It also pledged to improve health, education, and other public sectors, as well as to reduce the size of the cabinet. Shaukat Nawaz Mir, the alliance's leader, called on the protesters to disperse in Muzaffarabad, the region's capital. I'm grateful to the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the whole of Pakistan for understanding our problems and agreeing to resolve them, he told reporters. On Monday, thousands of protesters from nearby towns first converged in Muzaffarabad. The protests were led by Awami Action Committee, a civil rights rights organization formed to fight for local rights. Demonstrators were demanding an end to lucrative benefits for the political class, such as free electricity and expensive cars. The protest triggered clashes with security forces, 7 civilians, and 3 police officers were killed. According to Khawaja Amiruddin, a local police officer, breakthrough came 2 days after Sharif had sent a high-level delegation to Muzaffarabad for talks with AAC leaders. Public interest and peace are our priorities, and we will continue to serve Azad Kashmir, Sharif said in a statement. So, rest in peace to the 10 people that passed away during the violent protests. I send my condolences to their friends and family, because that's the least anyone should do when someone passes away. In regards to the protests and the demands about cheaper wheat and reduced electricity tariffs. Now, I could look more into this. However, I'd still not get a clearer picture on what the situation is. However, I will say I hope that whatever deal is negotiated to come to a common mutual agreement, and whatever violence is reflected from the lack thereof is eradicated, and everyone in the Kashmir region, or at least the Kashmir part of the Jammu Kashmir region, which is disputed between Pakistan and India, the people in that part of the world can continue to live their lives in peace. Mostly. I know it's not always, but at least most of the time it's peaceful that people can live their lives. Coinbase said on Friday it has applied for a national trust charter with the US Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, a move that would put the firm under federal regulatory oversight if approved. The charter would allow Coinbase to build on its existing custody business by offering services such as payments and settlements, without seeking a charter as a full-service bank. Coinbase has no intention of becoming a bank. Greg Tusa, Vice President of Institutional Product at Coinbase, said in a blog post, "It is our firm belief that clear rules and the trust of our regulators and customers enable Coinbase to confidently innovate while ensuring proper oversight and security." Today, the US crypto exchange's main regulated custody service is run through Coinbase Custody Trust Company, CCTC, which is licensed under New York State's BitLicense regime. That framework, introduced in 2015, was one of the earliest state-level regulatory models for crypto in the US. It's been a while I've heard about crypto. I know one thing is certain and guaranteed, and of course, I know a handful of people don't like hearing about this, and there'll be some that do like hearing about this. Cryptocurrencies will be the future of legal monetary tender. In other words, you will start, in the next few years, there will be a steady rise of people using cryptocurrencies as means of legal tender, monetary tender, to purchase or buy goods and or services from companies, organizations, or even just donate to charity. Well, if charities allow that, I doubt they would now, and especially in a couple of years' time. However, anything is possible. Honestly, anything is possible. A court in Tunisia has sentenced a 51-year-old man to death over social media posts deemed offensive to President Kais Saied and a threat to state security, his lawyer said on Friday. The defendant, identified as Sabeh Kuchane by human rights activists, were convicted on Wednesday of 3 charges: attempting to overthrow the state, insulting the president, and spreading false information online. Judges said the post incited violence and chaos and violated Tunisia's penal code, as well as the controversial 2022 cybercrime law, Decree 54. The ruling is the first of its kind in Tunisia, where dozens have been handed heavy prison sentences over similar charges since Said seized power over all branches of government in July 2021. Although capital punishment remains in Tunisia's penal code and civilian courts, occasionally issue death sentences. None have been carried out since the execution of a serial killer in 1991. In a statement on social media, lawyer Osama Bouthilja said that his client had been in pretrial detention since January 2024. He said the father of three is an occasional day laborer and suffers from a permanent disability caused by a workplace accident. I've got a lot to say on this. On one hand, I cannot take stories regarding being arrested for online posts seriously anymore, because whenever people say that the reason people being arrested for online posts, as they are deemed offensive to world leaders, tells me that the world leader just doesn't like what people are saying about the government or the person as a whole. And I think that, in my opinion, it just sounds very petty. And that cases like that are very laughable, in my opinion. However, on the other hand, if there is reasons that whoever the person was that was inciting violence, and there was some kind of influence of a majority of Tunisian people that are willing to go all out, to go against the Tunisian president, then that's a concern. I haven't heard if there were any people that who were thinking the same thing to enact violence against the president. But if that was true, and there are evidence that backs it up, you're no better than your own government. I'm just saying, there's enough violence in this world. Don't add more fuel to the fire. And even when you shouldn't ignite violence on anyone, even especially people of high power, that does not excuse that people that are being arrested for posting something online regarding the government or the leaders, simply on the grounds that said leader doesn't like what information is coming out of that. Again, I see that as very petty. And also kind of immature. I've been called many things, most of them negative, but I haven't called for any violence on those people. Not that I'm trying to get the high ground, simply because no one should go through that. I don't want to see such violence in this world. We have enough of that already with what's going on in Gaza and Russia and Ukraine. And or I say, whatever's the situation, general situation in Yemen, I'm not sure what it is. I would say the Houthis, but I know something is going on in Yemen. And also, not many people talk about this. The Democratic Republic of Congo. Whilst people are talking about Gaza, Ukraine and Russia, even to some extent the Houthis in Yemen, or just Yemen in general, what's going on in DRC? And I've tried to look more into this, but there isn't much information I can find. Yeah, no, not many people are talking about that. No one's talking about what's going on in Africa, or at least serious issues in Africa. It's unfortunate there are particular stories that are getting more attention, and whilst other serious issues are just swept under the rug. So sad. However, back to the story about the Tunisian man sentenced to death for social media posts. I got a lot of opinions on that. I understand you shouldn't ignite violence on anyone, even if it's against people in position of power. At the same time, I seriously can't take seriously the arrests, people being arrested for social media posts on the grounds that world leaders don't like the information coming out of said social media posts. Generally, it seems as petty, immature, and simply the kind of behavior that just radiates. Nuh-uh. Yeah, that's just my take. It's a concern about violence in general, However, if the information is just, I don't like this guy, he's a this and he's a that, come on, man, it's not that deep. Again, I've been called many things. I don't, I wouldn't ignite violence because no one deserves that. No one should. Kentucky Primate Sanctuary shares impact of Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall, a renowned primatologist and conservationist, passed away at age 91 on October 1st, 2025, while on a speaking tour in Los Angeles. Her death caps over 60 years of groundbreaking research began in 1960 when anthropologist Louis Leakey sent her to study chimpanzees in Tanzania's Gombe Stream National Park. Goodall's extensive research uncovered the sophisticated ways chimpanzees utilize objects, organize themselves within structured communities, and form deep emotional connections, fundamentally changing scientific perspectives and motivating her to create the Jane Goodall Institute in 1977. In 1991, she launched Roots and Shoots, a global youth program active in over 100 countries, emphasizing that every individual makes a difference and championing empathy for nature. Her legacy continues through ongoing research, conservation efforts, and youth activism, influencing global understanding of humans' connection to animals and the environment. Wow, that's quite the history from Jane Goodall. Again, rest in peace to Jane Goodall. She has made quite the impact. Not just how we learn about chimpanzees and other animals, but just animals in general. And I don't know I'm saying a lot. However, just from what I just read, how is anyone going to be convinced? How is people going to convince me otherwise? But yeah, I think that alone is all you need to know about Jane Goodall. And of course, there's more information, but in a short brief about her life and her research and her contributions, I think that all of that just speaks for itself individually. U.S. housing inventory has been rising for nearly 2 years, especially in the South and West, giving buyers more options. Falling mortgage rates, homes are sitting on the market longer, and price cuts are becoming more common. Buyer leverage varies by region, with Denver, Portland, and Indianapolis seeing the most price reductions. Mortgage rates have also recently decreased, which typically encourages more buying activity, despite cheaper borrowing costs. Homes are taking longer to sell, and buyer demand is not picking up significantly. For the past year and a half, homes have been sitting unsold for longer periods, suggesting weaker buyer demand or overpriced listings, according to the report. The biggest slowdowns are happening in Florida and the western states of the US, where homes are taking much longer than average to sell. More homeowners have started slashing prices. About 20% of homes for sale have had their prices reduced after being listed. Most of these cuts are happening in the lower end of the market, where home prices range from $350,000 to 500. No, that figure is very misleading. Where home prices range from $300,000 to $500,000. Overall, buyers now have more negotiating power than they did during the hot sellers market of the last few years. This buyer leverage isn't equal everywhere. It depends on the region, the price tier of the home, and local market trends. Different parts of the country are seeing different patterns when it comes to price reductions on homes. Well, if you're in the US and you want to get your first home, or maybe you're a foreigner wanting to buy a home in the United States, now is the time. But of course, if you're a foreigner going to the US, make sure that you know what is needed to immigrate to the US and you have the right documentation, just so that ICE just does not deport you. Just giving you a heads up. Just saying, heads up. Otherwise, anyone that's wanting to buy a home in the United States, there is no better time than now. And of course, it may take a while to even get into the phase of putting in the deposit for the home, but that just adds more to the reason why you should even get a home. Patience is key. And if there are a significant portion of people that are literally impatient to get their home, people with the highest patience to get their first home wherever they are in the United States, it would be the best tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars that they'll ever spend. And this may not last for long. Prices are going to go back up again once people realize that knowing this information about the amount of time it takes to put a deposit on the home, the mortgage, and all of the moving logistics, etc. Once people realize the time frame and if they're willing to be patient to get, and if they're willing to be patient, if it means getting a home in the end, then the prices will likely go back up again. It's all about the supply and the demand, of course. So yeah, nice to see that homes are affordable again to some extent. Not for long, but enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, enjoy the moments. That's all I have to say. Enjoy the moments. Feeling old? Sleep quality might play a part in that. According to a new study analyzed the brains of 27,500 middle-aged and older British citizens, showing that brains could appear around 6 months older due to bad sleep. The study used a point system, and for every 1 point decrease in healthy sleep scores, the age gap between a person's chronological age and their brain's age increased. The study didn't definitely prove anything, but could point to a link with dementia and neurodegeneration. The brain's deterioration later in life can be caused by low-grade inflammation, possibly exacerbated exacerbated by sleep deprivation. According to a new brain imaging study out of the Swedish Karolinska Institutet, the brains of people who regularly report poor sleep appear older than they actually are. As one author for bioengineer.org put it, the implications of this research are profound, shedding new light on the biological interplay between sleep health and neurological aging tra- trajectories. The study, which analyzed the brains of 27,000, I already read that, while Dove and her team's research didn't definitely prove anything, it does point to a potential link with dementia and neurodegeneration. That's because brain deterioration in later life can be caused by low-grade inflammation, which is likewise exacerbated by sleep deprivation. Wow, so the more you know. If you don't get a good night's sleep, your brain might slowly and gradually deteriorate over time. So if you have children and they ask, why should I go to bed early? Mention this research, mention this story, and maybe they'll listen. They won't pick up immediately, but at least they'll understand why it's important later in life to get a good night's sleep. So, well, there you go. Something to tell the kids, show that that sleeping well is certainly a good thing after all. Jeff Bezos predicts we'll have gigawatt data centers in space in 20 years at Italian Tech Week in Turin. Jeff Bezos predicted one of the things that's going to happen in the next, it's 10 plus years, and I bet it's not more than 20 years. We're going to start building these giant gigawatt data centers in space. AI and cloud computing are driving exponential growth in data centers, straining electricity and water for cooling, and motivating new infrastructure approaches. Building on satellite precedents, Bezos noted these giant training clusters those will be better built in space because we have solar power there, 24/7. There are no clouds and no rain, no weather, Bezos said. Maintenance in space remains cumbersome and costly. Of course they are. Upgrades are limited, and rocket launches carry high failure risks. I wonder why. Bezos says during breakthroughs in launch costs, maintenance, tech, and energy transfer are crucial. Bezos says space-based space-based data centers could undercut terrestrial costs within decades and frames this as part of space industrialization, with Amazon and the Kuiper satellite network accelerating projects amid growing interest from large tech companies. I'm not going to stop people going launching rockets out of space. Let them do what they want. If they have billions of dollars that want to spend to send rockets into space, they can do that. However, you can't convince people that they can go out of space without having to set up any green screen technology or any, I'm not sure how else I would call it. The point I'm making is, I'm all for space exploration. However, I'm finding it hard to be convinced that we could even go out of space. Because out of the videos I have seen of people going out of space, whether it be the International Space Station, a Tesla car launched on a rocket, the SpaceX launching tests, I know there's going to be people posting videos online that a lot of these space launches, rocket launches, they're theatrics. That's at least what that's at least what they're saying. There was a fly flying. There's one video recording through a window, showing the circular sphere that is Earth, and then all of a sudden fly, and all of a sudden there is a fly flying about from outside the space capsule, which the person that was recording the video was recording in through the window, looking out of Earth. That that was recording from a different window, looking at the rocket thrusts, and there was a mouse crawling about on top of the thrusts at an altitude and temperature that is not habitably possible, physically and habitably impossible at such altitudes and temperatures. I want to see space exploration. I want to see people go out of space, explore other planets, maybe explore other galaxies. However, I'm just not convinced by whatever NASA, SpaceX, or whatever space agencies are doing. Now, of course, I'm intrigued and interested by what people have researched about planets, the materials on those planets, and stars from light years away. What I'm not convinced by is the ability for us humans to leave Earth, exit our atmosphere, to then ride on rockets, leaving our planet Earth, and then land on other planets that are suitable for habitable life. That is the one aspect I am not fully convinced on at the moment. I want to see it, but I'm just not brought up on it. Taylor Swift breaks streaming records with new Showgirl album. Of course she does. On October 3rd, 2025, pop star Taylor Swift released her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, drawing immediate fan attention and topping daily streaming charts within 11 hours. Now that's a record for sure. Rumors about a Swift lively rift originated from the messy legal fight over Its End With Us, with reports saying Taylor Swift felt betrayed and furious about being dragged into the dispute. Streaming services reported that the fate of Ophelia, lead single, broke first-day streaming records on Apple Music and Spotify, while the 12 tracks set platinum platform records. In Melbourne, fans gathered wearing the album's Portofino orange to celebrate new songs while release week screenings premiered the lead video, and could gross $30 to $50 million with special vinyl editions sold at Target. Swift reunited with producers Max Martin and Shellback, featuring Sabrina Carpenter on the title track and highlighting Affiliate as Travis Kelce's favorite, signaling Showgirls pop shift. You know, I certainly can't say I'm surprised by the success of Taylor Swift. I know she has a massive fan base, the Swifties, and although her music's kind of good, it's decent. It's the fan base that I'm having opinions on. I appreciate the loyalty, however, I think there comes to a point where the fandom is too much. But that's just me. I don't have a problem with Swifties or Taylor Swift. I think things that get so much attention get beyond its limits. It gets to the point where people question, is any of this even real to begin with? Most of it is, actually. It's at a scale that people couldn't believe that people would never thought they would ever reach. Ever. At all. But yeah. So good for Taylor Swift. Still being successful as she's always is, and whatever happens, well, she's still going to break more records. Not literally, but also metaphorically as well. Well, not just metaphorically, but literally as well. Maybe. And maybe in a music video. How to grow a giant pumpkin with help from science. The pumpkin in Tony Scott's backyard weighs almost as much as a small car. He's been tending to it for months, feeding it fertilizer and covering it with a blanket at night to keep it at a stable temperature. A roll of measuring tape wrapped around the pumpkin gives him a rough estimate of its size. I've never seen anything grow this fast, said Scott, a semiconductor engineer from upstate New York. Every year, growers like Scott push their pumpkins to the limit. They compete in annual weigh-offs with colossal fruits that are well over 2,000 pounds, 900 kilograms. Scott's pumpkin took third place this year, coming in 1,031 pounds, 876 kilograms. Pumpkins aren't the only crops that can get giant. Other members of the gourd family, like squashes, cucumbers, and watermelons, are capable of a similar feat, but the orange behemoths are especially massive and have earned a place of honor at fall festivals and Halloween fairs. A giant pumpkin starts off as the perfect seed. Growers choose seeds that have yielded large pumpkins in the past or test new ones. Scott and many other growers rely on the tried and true Atlantic giant pumpkin seed. After that, it comes down to the right combination of water, nutrients, and care. Giant pumpkins can guzzle hundreds of gallons of water in a day and make their own food from sunlight just like regular-sized plants do. Their internal plumbing system is more robust, allowing them to drink up sugary water and nutrients faster. Oh, I never thought about that about pumpkins. So, anyone wants to grow a pumpkin, that's all the information you need to know. Gotta pick the right seed and always take good care of it. And I'm not just saying, and it's not just having a semiconductor, putting a blank over it. There are other aspects that'll do just as fine. That'll do just as well. Greta Thunberg says she is being held in Israeli cell infested with bedbugs. Environmental activist Greta Thunberg has told Swedish officials that she is being subjected to harsh treatment in Israeli custody after being detained and removed from a flotilla carrying aid to Gaza, The Guardian reports. In an email sent by the Swedish Foreign Ministry to people close to Thunberg, an official who visited the activist in prison said she's been held in a bedbug-infested cell with very little food and water. According to correspondence seen by The Guardian, another detained activist, and Israeli forces took photos of Thunberg allegedly being forced to hold flags. The identity of the flags is unknown. The embassy was able to meet with Greta, the email said. She reported that she was suffering from dehydration. She was not receiving sufficient amounts of water and food. She also stated that she had developed a rash, which she suspects was caused by bedbugs. She spoke about the harsh treatment and said that she had been sitting on hard surfaces for a long time. Another detained person reportedly told another embassy that she saw her, not Thunberg, being forced to hold flags while photos were being taken. She wondered if the images of her had been distributed. The Swedish ministry officials added. Thunberg is among the 437 activists, officials and lawyers who are part of the Global Sea Flotilla, a coalition of more than 40 ships carrying humanitarian aid and whose objective was to break the 16-year-old Israeli naval blockade of Gaza. From Thursday to Friday, Israeli forces intercepted all the boats and detained all the crew members on board. Most of them are being held at Kaziot, also known as Ansar III, a maximum security prison in the Negev desert, used primarily to hold Palestinian prisoners, many of whom are accused by Israel of involvement in militant or terrorist activities. Well, I know one thing is for sure. No matter how bad Greta Thunberg is being treated in Israeli prisons, she's still going to come back. For some reason, I know she will. I'd be concerned if she's in serious danger. However, I know she'll be alright. And not just because there are some people who will allow stories like this to go about just to get a reaction out of people. If anything does happen to Greta Thunberg, where she will not be able to continue what she's doing, then what else, what other hope is there for people to support the Palestinian people? There's no other way of describing it. Greta will find a way out of this. She'll be out of prison eventually, and she will return back to somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea and pretty much do the flotilla mission again with other activists. And even if the IDF get bored, sick and tired of the flotilla always coming to Gaza, it's still going to keep going. And it's going to keep on going. Why does it keep going? To be honest, I'm genuinely not sure. Even I'm getting sick and tired of this. However, that's just how the story goes. Whatever gets people's attention, it's I'll give them some kind of credit for whatever stories people are putting out to get people's attention in whatever way possible. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has embarked on a global fundraising initiative spanning East Asia and the Middle East, seeking financing and manufacturing partners to meet the company's demand for its computing capacity. The Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday, citing sources familiar with the meeting. Altman has held discussions since late September in Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan, with major suppliers such as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, Foxconn, Samsung, and SK Hynix to boost AI chip production and secure top priority orders for OpenAI, the report said. I understand all of that. I've also heard that OpenAI has released Sora version 2, and I've seen lots of social media posts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I don't think Clapper would allow such content to be promoted. But I know in the bigger, well-known platforms that people have experimented with Sora v2, and the results that I've seen so far were just videos of Michael Jackson referencing one of his songs, like I'm wanting to report a crime. Someone's been struck by a smooth criminal. I think I find that funny. Another Michael Jackson video with Kobe Bryant promoting something in a live stream. Oh yeah, there's a couple of SpongeBob animations. Like there was some that were the original first season. There's a few with that's the modern version of SpongeBob, like episodes that's released in the past year or two. There was the animation SpongeBob, one with the with messages and aesthetics and uniforms relating to a particular Austrian painter, the mustache man. Yeah, that's all you need to know. And also, there were also Sora V2 videos regarding the Austrian painter mustache man himself as well, with Michael Jackson brawling out on what seems to be a Dr. Phil show. Although it's not actually Dr. Phil because I never saw his face in that prompt. And there were other Sora V2 videos which a lot of people thought were real, but I knew that they were not real. They were generated by AI, specifically Sora. So yeah, technology, especially artificial intelligence, is getting smart. Very, very smart. Although I find it impressive and it really brings inspiration for a lot of people, it also brings quite a concern. Because if these people are becoming so reliant on such AI technologies, not now, and certainly not the next year or two, but at some point in the future, there will be jobs in today's time. They may not exist in the next few years. They will likely be obsolete because of AI automation. That's all I have to say on that. And that is the episode.